What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dante Boxing Nation. Go ahead and visit ashkickit.com. And while you at it, subscribe below and let's get straight to it. So Danny Garcia came out and stated that he feels Canelo Alvarez should be the number one pound for pound instead of Terence Crawford, which kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit because he also stated that Terence Crawford is given too much credit by the fans, which is kind of like the opposite. Terence Crawford had to earn everything. And he also said that he never got his props and he never been on the pound for pound list. However, I would say Danny Garcia been on the pound for pound before, on the top 10 pound for pound. That's when he beat Matisse, because at that time he was undefeated. He beat Amir Khan, and then he beat Matisse. However, like I always say, it's hard to become a champion, but it's even harder to maintain a champion. It's not easy to be on the top, but it's harder to stay on the top. It's not easy to enter the 10 pound for pound list because you have so many divisions, so many champions, because there are like 4 belts in every division. So you got to stand out to enter the top 10 pound for pound. However, it is even harder to stay on the top 10 pound for pound because then you got to fight the fighters in your shoes who were as hungry as you on the come up that want your spot. So just keep that in mind. Now, at the time, Danny Garcia had a hometown fight after that Matisse win when he entered the top 10 pound for pound. And it was supposed to be a stay busy fight, but when he fought Herrera, in my opinion, he lost. Herrera schooled him. Even if you thought Danny Garcia won or it was a draw, in my opinion, it was a hometown decision. But whatever the case might be, at the end of the day, if you're a top 10 pound for pound fighter, you're not supposed to have these type of close fights with this guy, with Herrera, just a top fighter in your division. You know what I mean? It's too many divisions of boxing and too many belts and too many champions for you to have a close fight with somebody like Herrera and, you're trying to stay on the top 10. And then it felt like he lost that fight because the fight after that, he fought somebody who was ranked number 60 at lightweight. And after that, he fought Lamont Pearson to unify the division. But Lamont Pearson at the time, they didn't fight for the IBF strap because I think Danny Garcia couldn't make the weight anymore, so they fought 143 or 141. I'm not too sure. Now, in my opinion, Lamont Pearson pulled that off, or it was a draw. Even if you thought Danny Garcia won again, at the end of the day, he keep having close matches with top guys in his division. But like I say, in order to be on the top pound for pound list, you have to stand out from other fighters. You have to beat them in dominant fashion, like Terence Crawford is doing today. Now, who's kind of similar to Danny Garcia today? Canelo is, because Canelo is having, every time he fights a top fighter, it's always a close fight. Win or lose is always a close fight, kind of like Danny Garcia did. Funny enough, they kind of similar in a way. Danny Garcia and Canelo have decent hand speed. However, they stuck in the mud, like Connor like to say, when it comes to their footwork. And they always, when they step up, they have close fights. But neither here or there. The whole point is, in order to be on the top 10 pound for pound or to be number 1 pound for pound, let's talk about the number 1 spot because that's what this video is about. Now, in order to be the number 1 pound for pound, what do we judge this on? Basically, first of all, it has to be all facts. Keep your opinion to yourself. If you're not supporting your opinion with facts, then it don't matter. Now, in order to be on the top pound for pound or to be number 1, we judge this based on these 3 things. Your resume. Who did you beat? Second thing, how dominant are you? Are you hardly winning or are you dominating like you something else, like you special? Like when Floyd, every time he stepped in the ring, you know who won. That's why he was on the top 10 pound for pound. I mean, that's why he was the number 1 pound for pound for the longest. Andre Ward the same way. Even Rigondeaux. They mentioned, they said Rigondeaux in that interview. They said, oh, Rigondeaux, Lomachenko, they on the top 10, but, you not, or whatever. I forgot what he said exactly. But how y'all gonna try to downplay Rigondeaux? Rigondeaux never had a close fight. When he fought a top 3 pound for pound fighter, he lost 1 round. So that's how you prove that you're a top 10 pound for pound, or on the top 5, or top 3, or top 2, or number 1. Like I said, first thing was you have to have a deep resume. Second of all, you have to be dominant. Third of all, if I put you at every division, can you beat every fighter in that division? That's the main requirement for the number 1 spot. And that's why I always have Rigondeaux on the top 3 pound for pound, because if you put Rigondeaux at any division, who beats Rigondeaux? Terence Crawford, you see how dominant he is? You see how he beats all his competition like they nobodies? But look, Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez hardly beating the guys in his own division, let alone putting him at any division. Like, imagine if Canelo fights at 147. So when you look at a guy like Terence Crawford, looking at his resume, he beat guys like Gamboa. So he beat 2 guys with gold medals. Now, I know a lot of people going to say Gamboa was too small to be a 135-pounder, whatever the case might be. However, it's still Gamboa, and that's the closest fight he ever had, and he knocked Gamboa out. Then he moved on. He fought Beltran, and he moved up to 140 pounds, and he has all the belts. So he fought everybody. Danny Garcia didn't want to fight Postal, but you saw what Terence Crawford did to him. He had Freddie Roach afraid of putting Pacquiao in there with Terence Crawford after that performance. So if Danny Garcia feels that Terence Crawford is not deserving of the number 1 spot, how come he don't welcome Terence Crawford to the welterweight division and take that number 1 spot from him so he could get the credit he deserved? I'll tell you why. Because he knows that Terence Crawford is a problem. Because when Danny Garcia first moved up to welterweight, y'all remember he fought Paulie coming off a year layoff and a loss to Sean Porter. Sean Porter stopped Paulie in 4 rounds. And then a year later, he fought Danny Garcia when Danny Garcia debuted at 147. And it took Danny Garcia 8 rounds to TKO Paulie. So it wasn't an impressive performance. After that, he fought for a vacant title versus Guerrero. Now, Guerrero was coming off back-to-back losses to Floyd, Thurman. And he had a draw. Then he fought Danny Garcia. So, y'all think when Terence Crawford gonna move up, he gonna fight a Guerrero to get a belt? Absolutely not. He's aiming for Thurman. Just Errol Spence, whoever on top. He wants the number 1 guy at 147. So you gotta give a guy like Terence Crawford his props, because he earned it. We not giving him like HBO is giving Lomachenko too much credit. He earned the number 1 pound for pound at this point, because Rigondeaux is not really active, but he just had a fight, so he's on the top 3 pound for pound. And like I said, if Rigondeaux could pull off the Lomachenko win, even though he's moving up 2 weight divisions, then he could be a candidate for the number 1 spot. But Canelo Alvarez, on the other hand, when you look at Canelo's career, it was a knockdown that actually got him the win versus Trout. It was a very close fight, and that was just another guy in his division. It was a champion. So how can the number 1 pound for pound have such a close fight with just a regular fighter in his own division? Then, in my opinion, Lara beat him, and he got a gift decision. Even if you thought he beat Lara, that's another close fight. Even if you thought he beat Golovkin, that's another close fight. The number 1 pound for pound should be winning fights 10 rounds to 2 at least. Now, having 6 rounds to 6 with top fighters around his weight classes, and you trying to say that guy is the number one pound for pound? Nah, the number one pound for pound guy shouldn't have a close fight with no fighter, not even in all weight divisions. Now, if you have a close fight like Andre Ward did with Kovalev after you move up a weight and stuff, or like Floyd when he moved up to 135, you need to come back and have a rematch with that fighter and beat him. And Andre Ward did that. Floyd did that. Did Danny Garcia do that when he fought Herrera? Can Canelo Alvarez do that to Golovkin? Did Canelo Alvarez did do that to Lara? You saw when a pound-for-pound fighter, which is Floyd Mayweather, fought Canelo Alvarez, how he made Canelo Alvarez look. Did Canelo even win a round in that fight? Now, I'm not saying you have to win all your fights in dominant fashion, but at least most of your top fights in dominant fashion. And then if you have a close fight here and there, it's cool. As long if it was really close, you give that guy a rematch and you beat him again. But Canelo Alvarez is not, he ain't doing that. Danny Garcia is not doing that. But guess who's doing that? Terence Crawford is. And that's why he's the number one pound for pound to a lot of people. And like I always say, if you're gonna disagree, it's all cool, but as long as you support your opinion with facts. Now, there is no way Canelo Alvarez is the number one pound for pound. It's just like it's no way Golovkin is the number one pound for pound. What are y'all trying to say? Canelo and Golovkin is the number one and the number two pound for pound? That's why they having these type of close fights? Nah, they just good fighters. But the difference, Terence Crawford is a great fighter. The difference is Rigondeaux is a great fighter. You could tell they gifted in every way. Terence Crawford could do it all. He could fight going forward, backwards. He could fight in the inside, outside, mid-range. And that's what makes him unique. And that's why he's the number one pound for pound right now. Till either somebody beats him or somebody, like I said, like Rigondeaux, he's taking a huge risk that nobody's taking. Like, you don't see Lomachenko, they say nobody want to fight Lomachenko. You don't see Lomachenko moving up 2 weight divisions and fighting Terence Crawford to prove he's number one pound for pound. So because Rigondeaux is taking a huge risk like that versus a top fighter like Lomachenko, if he pulls that off, then he could take that number one spot from Terence Crawford. But at this point, Crawford is the number one pound for pound, no doubt. So if Danny Garcia want to prove that he's on the top 10 pound for pound or even top 3, hey, you got the top pound for pound fighter moving up to your own division. You got top 10 pound for pound fighters, period, in welterweight at your own division. So fight those guys and you can prove yourself again. But like I said, you can't just want Thurman just because he beat you, but not fight anybody else. Because Terence Crawford, they had a Twitter beef before, and Terence Crawford was willing to fight him. And Sean Porter been calling him out for the longest. He even went to his old fights before and called them out. But Danny Garcia tried to, basically throw him under the table. And now he's saying that Sean Porter don't really want the fight because he's fighting somebody else. But my question is, if you're saying he never called you, how about you make the call? Because he called you out, right? So you make the call and make that fight happen. Because somebody in your own team had to make the call to fight Rios. So why couldn't they do the same thing to Sean Porter and get a better fight? But probably, I Heyman told both of them that y'all both coming off losses to Keith Thurman. And, it's going to hurt y'all brand if y'all take back-to-back losses. So it's better off to get a couple wins than fight in the future or whatever the case might be. But I'm just questioning what he said as far as, hey, they don't really want the fight. Which I know Sean Porter really want the Danny Garcia fight. And you got Errol Spence, a champion in your own division. And you get credit even for fighting him, not winning, just for fighting Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence been calling out Danny Garcia for the longest. But Danny Garcia, he's not even acknowledging anything. Like, he's pretending that Errol Spence is not even there. He's not even in his own division. He called him out so many times. You hardly see a champion call a non-champion out. like in this type of fashion. And Danny Garcia is not even acknowledging it. So at the end of the day, even Hearn's calling out Danny Garcia. I meant Jeff Horn. And Jeff Horn is the newest champion in the division, and he's calling out Danny Garcia. Even though Danny Garcia just came off a loss, you would think, oh, it's risky, I don't got too much to gain. No, they want to fight Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is a very wanted man, I guess, because he looks beatable, even though he gets the job done, but he don't look unbeatable like Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. When you look at them, you be like, hey, I want to stay away from that guy. So because of that, they keep, everybody want to fight Danny Garcia. Everybody want a piece of Danny Garcia. So Danny Garcia could prove himself. It's not like he's not in a Rigondeaux situation where nobody wants to fight him. No, he could prove himself. But the whole point about making this video is the fact that Terence is the #1 pound for pound. It's not even a comparison when it comes to Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. Because, like I said, you got one guy just dominating. You got another guy who's just surviving out here. He's just hardly winning. I would say Canelo is a good comparison to Danny Garcia. If he was comparing himself to Canelo, I would have understood that. I just didn't understood why he saying Canelo Alvarez is the #1 pound for pound instead of Terence Crawford, which kind of, like I said, raised my eyebrows. That's why I made this video. So like I said before, if you want to get smarter by the minute, subscribe below. If you want to get dumber by the second, don't, and listen to these casual ass fans. Peace.